Good evening. It is 5:04. Welcome to the special meeting study session on February 27th, 2024. We're going to start, I'm going to open the meeting. We're going to start with roll call.
Right, President Nakatani,
Here.
trustee Sernchit Hodge,
Present.
trustee Yu,
Present.
trustee Abdoli,
She will be phoning in.
Okay.
In closed session.
and I am trustee Katz and I am present.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on closed session tonight? Okay, then we will adjourn this portion and we will go to closed session and come back at 6. Thank you.
And we have the
And we're back at 5:06. Trustee Abdoli had emergency circumstances and will be phoning in, and we have a few procedural items to allow for that. So we're gonna get her on the phone and we're gonna start with a few of those things. Do you have those questions for me? Okay. It's okay.
anyone else in the room over 18?
I think she has to get on. Oh. You have to have a.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And so.
The only question is identify the emergency.
Yeah, so then, do I just call her?
Yeah.
So it's, then we have the questions.
Well,
Okay,
I think the only question, because of the emergency circumstances, we just ask what the emergency is. We don't have to do that. I think, no, we're hearing not on the,
yeah, no, he said, is there
we don't, yeah.
is there anyone else in the room over 18?
Oh, there is? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I missed those.
All right, so then,
Are you dialing her? right
yeah,
now?
that's. Oh, shoot. Maybe what we should do is just pull the. um, Okay. Yeah, I don't think she qualifies for. emergency. I think we should just adjourn to closed session without her at this point. Okay. I think that's probably the best thing to do.
We can't find her.
I'm not sure we can add her right now.
What about slow, what about open?
I need to talk to them.
Okay, all right, so we will close again, 5:09, and we will proceed to closed session.
Previous. 20 minutes into each because I don't know if they have another.
I think we just do three.
Okay. Okay. Go with whatever you,
Are we good, Sid?
good to go?
Good evening. Thank you for waiting. It's a important night. It is, I'm gonna open the regular meeting at 6:24, February 27th, 2024. And we are going to start with, roll call.
All right, President Nakatani?
Here.
Trustee Sernsichaj?
Present.
Trustee you?
Present.
I am trustee Katz, I'm present, and trustee Abdoli is,
Trustee Abdoli is unfortunately not here. Dr. Hoffman, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, trustee Abduli is on the East Coast for work. She is listening in and she is definitely committed to being here. Travel plans for work preclude her being in person tonight.
Thank you, Ellie, for listening. We have no reportable action from closed session. And so I'm going to move to the approval of the agenda. I would like to ask if someone can make a motion to switch the public comment to after our study session. Right now, we have it before study session, and I think we should hear our study session, then have public comment, and then discuss.
I move to make that switch.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Then we have to actually approve that change.
And I think what we want is for the ability for staff to present and then have public comment before board deliberation.
Oh, sorry, is that better? Okay,
I think what we want to have is the ability to have staff present and then have public comment prior to board deliberation.
right. So Michelle moved to switch that order, and then would somebody like to move to approve that order? I think. A motion
So
to
moved.
Thank you. Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now we will go to our study session.
Good evening, Julio Arroyo with Director of Maintenance Operations and Safety for the Mill Valley School District. Next slide, please, Sid, for introductions. Thank you. So tonight we have our various teams. So we have AECom, which is our construction and program management team. We have Flint here tonight, who's our general construction for the Mill Valley Middle School project, as well as Lionakis, who are architects for the Mill Valley Middle School project. And so with AECom, we have Brent Mitchell, who's principal in charge, Sandrine Hitchcock, who's our program manager, Mark Minucci's with Flynn, he's our project executive, and as well with Lionakis, we have Laura Noss, our principal in charge, as well as Mark Jewell, who's also our architect on the team. Next slide, please. So the purpose tonight is to provide the school board with available information informing the Mill Valley Middle School location options. Also tonight, we're looking to provide the school board with high-level recommendations from the steering committee regarding the middle school design, and that will come from our Lionakis team. And so our outcome that we will be working towards tonight is to answer any questions from the school board, as well as request board direction for preparation of the March 7th, 2024 board meeting. So part one of our agenda is to review our Measure G educational design and sustainability considerations. Part two is going to focus on the analysis of criteria for consideration in the site selection. And then part three, we will have discussion and request direction. And then part four, we'll have a high-level review and discussion of steering committee design recommendations. So as I move into the part one, next slide, please. So we started out into Measure G here that was approved by the community, and the focus is modern teaching and learning for the Mill Valley District community. So a vision for today and tomorrow, building for tomorrow and for future generations. And so our goals within Measure G are to modernize, upgrade, renovate, and repair school buildings, classrooms, and other facilities across the district, as well as create, modern, accessible, and beautiful learning facilities and service to Mill Valley students and families for generations to come. Also, to provide every student with the best possible education environment every day, setting them up for success and in the future. And then finally, construct a new Mill Valley Middle School facility to replace a current school building, which was built in 1972. So for these next couple slides, I'm going to pass it over to Laura Lionakis, who's going to go over the components of design that we're working with.
So in addition to the facilities master plan that outlined the program for the new Mill Valley Middle School and critical success factors and guiding principles that surrounded that, we also take into account the impact that the building can have on teaching and learning as part of the learning environment. This is one of many diagrams that exist in our line of work that talks about indoor environmental quality, people and community, and the spatial environmental factors that influence how we talk about and guide a school design. You can see there are some very physical things: thermal comfort, indoor air quality, lighting, views, and acoustics. But there are, of course, the social interactions and relationships that come with students and teachers and community coming together in schools, and how we design classrooms and for school maintenance and operations, but also to encourage that design.
Dr. Kaufman?
Thank you. And we added in to this presentation while we were in contemplating this open session conversation, just to quickly add in the slides, because one of the things we've done is we've looked at these concepts in the steering committee, and we've also looked at them in community meetings which have been widely attended. However, we really haven't given the opportunity for the board to have a conversation about these specific items. We had planned that conversation to be consistent with whenever we made a site decision. However, since we're looking at asking for some guidance this evening, it makes sense to have these options in front of our trustees. So if you would not mind narrating a bit about these slides.
Of course. Concept A was the concept we started with the steering committee, and it envisioned a classroom wings organized around grade levels, the existing multipurpose room to remain, and administration, library, and arts classrooms to support that. Some of the discussions we had was whether we could enclose or should enclose that area called outdoor dining and gathering, and to make sure that we had space for a future gymnasium to expand the multipurpose space. This option does require and mandate the interim temporary campus. Based on feedback we received from our steering committee after we toured a number of schools to see what's happening out in the school world right now, we were asked to also take a look at the grade level pods as a single story solution, so that each classroom had direct and immediate access to the outdoors. As you can see, the wings are similar, and this will also require a temporary campus, but uses approximately the same footprint as the other one. The future gym has other options on the east side of campus. Concept C, we were asked by the community, were there no other options besides building on the existing campus? So we did look at the district-owned property known as Friends Field and looked at an option there. This was, as I called it, the 24-hour notice option. So it wasn't completely thought out, but it did represent the approximate square footage that we would be looking at. And of course, the advantage here was no temporary campus and that disruption. And we did look at a fourth option that we shared at the community meeting that isn't shown here, and that cleaned up some of the things in that concept C. For those of you who were at that meeting, we labeled that C2. So you can see a summary of what I just spoke about, approximately 80,000 square feet of new construction, another couple thousand square feet adjacent to the multipurpose building, and a modernization or renovation of the existing multipurpose building, understanding that that would be our escape valve if the costs were too extensive. We did, however, estimate based on these assumptions. Obviously, concept C develops more land. Concepts A and B eliminate the temporary campus.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Is C2 included in this as well? Wait, yeah, so people don't have to wait. Oh, well, we have,
Look for sure. You guys have them in your.
yeah, I'm familiar, okay. Oh, yes. In the meantime, if anyone would like to make public comment, please turn your slips into Anna Russell right here. She's actually passing the site plans around, but please turn them in promptly. Thank you. And if we can't pull it up on screen, I think everyone now has a copy in front of them and we can. So, thank you, Sid.
I was gonna say little lag in our. Lag in fire.
Technology never comes through when you need it.
No. Thank you, Anna.
Can we also inform the people on Zoom where they might be able to locate this as they
Yeah,
can?
If we aren't able
On
to
our website?
pull it up, it is on our website. I know it came in the February 13th. There we go. Never mind. Everyone can see it.
So C2 was an evolution of the option on the district property north of the creek. And that addressed some issues related to daylighting, but also was able to preserve approximately half of the field, both in the short and the long term. So these were the four options that were shared with the steering committee. However, we didn't ask the steering committee for their preference on that. We asked them for their preference on individual kit of parts that will ultimately make up that middle school site. One of the areas we talked in steering committee number 2 extensively about was sustainability goals, what is mandated by code, which is a pretty high level in today's code for schools, but also that there were opportunities for certification by LEED, WELL, or other organizations to test our assumptions on sustainability. We, of course, have our flood zone issues that we're dealing with, and we have shared the data on that in previous meetings. But this was really focused on energy codes and what current codes, including electrification of the site, electric vehicle charging, solar panel requirements, as well as the baseline requirements of a solid envelope, daylighting, and all of the energy analysis required. This will also require a life cycle analysis for carbon as part of the next generation code.
Thank you. So in the next part of our presentation, we're going to focus on the criteria used to provide an analysis for the site locations that Laura reviewed. And so those 4 components are educational benefits, that's teaching and learning, timeline for project completion, as well as cost for project completion and community input. And additionally, any analysis of environmental factors will also be presented. So the question for the board tonight is which potential site is best for the Mill Valley Middle School renovation project? And so you have here to the left is focusing on the current Mill Valley Middle School's site that's showed within the white lines. And then on the right is we have options C and D being reflected, C1 and C2, sorry, being reflected on the right-hand side. And so based off our educational benefits for the site is the way we broke up the 2 points is the plus represents the benefit and the dash, the minus sign represents the drawback. And so on the left-hand side, we have building at the Mill Valley Middle School site. And so most of the drawbacks that we noted here are most of the Mill Valley Middle School campus will be relocated to temporary buildings to accommodate students during the construction. That's a temporary campus that Laura was referring to, including 32 portables, as well as core classes being relocated for temporary classrooms, staff moving twice in a 2-year period, transitioning to and starting at a temporary campus for 2 years, then moving back to the new site, as well as student and staff located closer to construction site and logistical challenges, including technologies and material. That's our server room and materials for development and maintenance of the temporary campus. And on the right-hand side, we have what represents a benefit. And so that's building on the Mill Valley Middle School property, also known as Friends Fields. And so some of the benefits that are shown here are no need for temporary classrooms, educational continuity and preservation of the middle school experience, all on current campus, accessing current resources, as well as minimizing disruption to children whose learning has already been impacted by COVID, and then also staff prepared and ready to teach without moving or addressing other logistics. And then this is meant to reflect analysis of the impacts of the timeline for each site. And so starting on the left-hand side of building on the current Mill Valley Middle School site, some of the drawbacks are logistics and timeline challenges of building on an occupied school site, and also requires installation of temporary classrooms and other facilities, necessitating the March 2024 deadline for a decision for ordering portables and acquiring design approval so that the students and staff can be moved to temporary housing in time for this start of fall of 2025. And so on the right-hand side, we're showing building of Mill Valley Middle School on Friends Field. And so we have here the benefit is site is currently being unoccupied, reducing some logistical impacts. And so both sites do require a full CEQA environmental analysis, as well as selection of either site could result in litigation that delays construction, also triggering potential mid-year moves to campuses. And this is environmental impacts by site. And so once again, starting from the left-hand side, building at the Mill Valley Middle School site, the school is approximately currently 9 acres, adds disturbance and new development to large area of the existing middle school campus, strictly for the temporary classroom and campus, as well as other drawbacks are temporary facilities will require a significant quantity of construction material, including wood, concrete, et cetera, that will later need to be demolished and disposed of for a short period of time. And then on the right-hand side, building on Mill Valley Middle School, also known as Friends Fields, the Mill Valley Middle School site is on the property known as Friends Fields, approximately 12 acres. And so the benefits is traffic noise is reduced, greater distance from sewage treatment plant, and then the drawback listed here is adds new construction development of an additional 3 acres on current fields. And so Mark with Flint is going to review the projected cost sites, projected cost by site for each option here.
And we'll talk about all options versus just the 2 here that are shown. That's what I'll do. So yeah, back to this slide. So the option on the left is to rebuild on the original school campus. This is the most costly option, which we are confident that we can fit within the $130 million budget. When you look to rebuild on Friends Field, starting with the option C, where the entire Friends Field is taken over and developed on for the new school. That creates a $6 to $8 million savings. There's more development of land, more, mitigation of hazardous soil that's involved, but it eliminates the temporary housing completely, the need for that. If you analyze option C2, which only takes approximately half of Friends Field, maintaining one of the fields for use through the process, it's less land development ultimately, and that generates a $10 to $12 million savings from the 130 million is what we're estimating.
Thank you, Mark. So the analysis of impacts to cost by site. So on the left-hand side, we have building at the middle school site, similar like what Mark just talked about. We have it's approximately 9 acres. Temporary classroom building facilities would cost approximately $15 million. And then building on the middle school, on the Mill Valley Middle School property, also known as Friends Field, is the Mill Valley Middle School site on the property known as Friends Field. It's 12 acres, as Mark stated. And one of the benefits is not needing portables, which we're estimating to save about $15 million, in building replacement fields will cost $7 to $8 million, resulting in potential $6 to $8 million to apply to other Measure G projects if all 12 acres are developed. And then one of the drawbacks represented is increased campus size results in the mitigation of the additional 3 acres. So that's just a summary of what Mark was talking about in his presentation. And so this is our analysis of potential litigation costs. And so our analysis shows that litigation would increase hard costs approximately $7 million per year, assuming 7% escalation factor, and trigger additional soft costs as well. And this would come with delays that come with litigation. And then community input, sources of community input considered. And so the first is being thought exchange, responses to the question, what do you think is the most important consideration for Mill Valley School District when selecting a location for the new middle school? 2 is polling of district voters. 3 is public meetings, public comments on board meetings and community input forums, as well as meetings with constituents, including board of Friends of Park and Recreation, Mill Valley Little League, and the city staff and the staff of the city, and then communication to the letters of the Board of Trustee email address. So tonight. Yeah.
I'll jump in.
Yep.
Sid, I think the last 2 slides should be, there should be the remaining new slides that are coming forward. Community impacts, and then there should be, nope. There are additional slides that came from the community input. Okay, there at the end, that's fine. We can go forward to the end. Yes, please. Hold on, I gotta now go back. 'Cause I gotta get my glasses on to see them. All right, so this is. Go to the next. There we go. So we've really tried to create a process where people have the opportunity to know what we're going to decide, when we're deciding it, and keep a cadence that is communicated well in advance. So this set of slides reviews just some of the work we've been doing. We've had steering committees followed by student outreach, followed by a board meeting. And typically those are followed soon after. The CBOC meetings are scheduled quarterly, more or less, maybe trimesterly. But typically any school board meeting is followed by a community outreach meeting and or a steering committee meeting. Next slide. These are just some additional meetings that we've had: community and staff meeting, school board meeting. Next slide. Again, looking forward to September 2024, we'll have a community outreach meeting. I believe one is getting planned for late March right now. That was a new date coming forward. But again, just as part of the way we're trying to do our work and inform our community, we've been trying to make sure that people have the opportunity to know what's going to be addressed when. Next slide. Again, continuing on. So we did one of the tools that we've been using this year to try to get feedback from our community is a tool called Thought Exchange. And in this case, we had a question open for a period of time, which is, what do you think the most important consideration for Mill Valley School District is when selecting a location for the new middle school? And the responses indicate a variety of consideration, which we frequently find when we poll Mill Valley, is we have an array of responses, and some cluster together in themes and others are broader. The most frequently mentioned factors include the long-term viability of the location, the quality of the education, and the minimization of disruption to students. Clearly, safety, accessibility, and integration with community facilities were also highlighted. And then sub-respondents expressed concern about the impact on Friends Field and the proximity to the sewage treatment plant, which is, we've heard concerns consistently in both of those areas from our community. And then the need for fiscal responsibility, environmental considerations, and the preservation of community resources were also emphasized. So what that looks like is some general themes. So without going into too much detail about Thought Exchange, the items that rank 3.5 or higher, showing the greatest support from our community, and those things were health, topics that addressed health, students, teachers, education, safety, environment, accessibility, and construction. And then, other areas of interest, also ranking high budget, cost, facilities, location, traffic, community, and disruption. I don't think anything's surprising about any of that information. It's, what we've all heard. And what we did here is just try to look at those kinds of clusters and say, what we think happened with that Thought Exchange data is that in general, it's sort of trended with our 4 areas. So, or we added environmental impact as a 5th area for parameters, but looking at educational benefit, looking at the cost, really making sure we're fiscally responsible, minimizing disruption to students, really looking at long-term viability and environmental considerations, and then, making sure that we're addressing community input and community impact. Next slide. So I was thinking back to what feels like a long time ago, but I think it was really only mid-January when we started having these conversations. I was probably, maybe it was beginning of February. They'll blend together, but I remember a gentleman coming and saying we were crossing the Rubicon, and I believe in many respects it feels probably to every individual who has followed this journey that we have indeed been down that path. And this is an extraordinarily complex process journey, because we're looking at input from diverse perspectives. We have competing interests and demands, and we're trying to do the best thing for our kids. We're trying to also steward our community resources, and you heard the potential savings of 6 to 12, $10 million. That's significant, particularly when we're using our taxpayers' money. So we needed to spend our time looking in great depth at the community feedback. We have received a ton of feedback, and we have done our best to try to make sure that we listen to broad voices. So making sure that we looked at information from all perspectives that were coming to us. We also heard strong support, as we went through this process, consistent strong support, whether it was in letters to the trustees, whether it was from other data sources that we pulled, really a lot of support for maintaining the school at the current location. And we absolutely want to acknowledge that. That is huge. And this middle school design and the process, that our ability to do any Measure G work, which will be occurring at all of our sites, is a function of our community and its support for our education system. And that is not something that we have taken lightly at all. And we also heard that community usage of the fields for sports and maintaining the field that allows community access to green space centrally really is important to our community. Like that, those are data points that they've held across demographics, and they're significant for us to address, particularly as we look at asking our community to support our schools now and in the future. So that is, information that will impact our deliberation and the consideration of the other 3 variables or 4 variables if you consider the environmental impact as well. So, that it is not ignored. It is not weighted, 25% against each of the other 4 things that we're doing. It is a significant factor in our deliberation. And I know that all of you who love our children and love our school and love our fields and our community have been on the journey with us, and it's been a challenge for everybody. So I want to thank everyone for their ongoing support and patience as we've gone through our process of deliberation. And I think that slide should be gone. Right. Now we're handing it over to.
So I think the next part, you would go back to deliberation and discussion, but I think we're gonna break real quick for public comment.
Yep.
Okay, so
We-
thank you.
We
Go ahead.
also have the steering committee information.
We'll
Oh, we'll do that
after.
after.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. We got a few more. Okay, 3 more. Okay, so we have 13.
Sorry.
13. 13 at 2.5 minutes.
Around 30 minutes of.
Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah.
to do some quick math.
If we had, I think 2.5.
2.5 minutes per person. Since we don't have as many speakers, I think we can, hear people, and they may not take that long. So,
Want to make sure we announce that it's closed now. though.
yeah, and opportunity for public comment is closed. We have 3 on Zoom. Thank you, the Zoomers. I will, well, I'm gonna take them in the order what these were received, frankly. So, thank you. And first person is Jamie Johnson. And we've got the clock over here. Okay, thank you. Kim Jessup, please. And we're working on our clock. I thought I saw, oh, there, yeah. You know what? Trustee would you
I'll
like
get
to
it.
move the clock? If you
Yes.
could still angle it so Sid can see and then also the speaker can see. I think maybe that would help.
I think.
Oh, no, down
pulling
to
it
the
back
table.
toward-
On our table, yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you very much.
So that that she can see there. we go.
Yeah, we can all see
Okay.
it that way.
That's perfect.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I so appreciate all of your efforts and time that have gone into this whole process. I know it's arduous. I'm an architect in town, and it's feedback from the community is so important, and also from your constituency and your students. It all brings the picture around to make a challenging process, and I appreciate so much all the time and effort that's gone into this. So I grew up here in Mill Valley, and I was the first graduating class of this school. I've always loved this school. I've always thought it was a great building. I thought it was an amazing location. We already went through this process 50 years ago when the school was built. The site checks off all the boxes. It is a large single-use property. It is centrally located in our community. It has easy access for students, parents, and teachers. It is adjacent to a main roadway, the community center, bike path, and recreational fields. It is a safe and welcoming learning environment. This structure was built as a building block for the future of the middle school. Additional needs and building beautification were considered phase 2, but to meet budget requirements, I would say the architecture maybe suffered the most. But I always looked forward to that next phase of this building becoming really what it potentially could be. This project should focus on the improvement and revitalization of this facility. It can be done. Other properties in Mill Valley, a good example is the Redwoods Retirement Center, just went through that process. And it was an effective process. I would encourage us to look at that again. Upgrade the structure, systems, accessibility and code compliance, repurpose areas in the floodplain for outdoor learning, reduce our carbon footprint created by tearing down the structure, develop an inspiring vision for the future, repurpose the portables for homeless housing. This is the right location for the middle school.
Thank you,
Friends
Kim.
Field should be acknowledged
Thank
as
you,
a
Kim.
hugely valuable asset
Thank you, Kim.
to the school
you.
and the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone to watch the clock. We've extended time. Sorry. Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
To wrap up there.
Yes. Yeah. As soon as you hear the buzzer, please wrap up your thought. Thank you, trustee Katz. And please watch the clock as well. Thank you. David Spire. And then after David, we have Douglas Nelson. Okay, Dave, sorry, thank you. Douglas Nelson, are you here?
Yes, good evening, trustees and Superintendent Kaufman. As I read through the supporting document for this meeting, which I see is also a very identical document that will be used at the Citizens Oversight Committee on Thursday, it really kind of shocked me, I have to say, because it was purported to be an analysis of criteria, and it was so biased towards Friends Field. It was kind of absurd. I mean, there were so many pluses to using Friends Field and so many minuses to using the middle field, the middle school site. It's not credible. It's just not credible. So as hopefully you saw yesterday, I sent you an email with, what I purport, additional benefits to using the middle school site and additional drawbacks to using the Friends Field site. I tried to keep it as succinct as possible, and I will say that my email is probably biased in the other direction, but if you put the two together, you might have a balanced view. And I think that it's really important that you do find a balanced view, because you're not getting it in the materials that I'm seeing. On page 6 of your presentation, it says that Friends Field is unoccupied. That is not the case. That is not true. Parks are not unoccupied spaces. It's a vitally used space. It's part of the Mill Valley Community Center. Page 10, litigation will cost you up to $7 million a year in additional hard costs, not including the soft costs. That seems to wipe out all your potential savings from the Friends Field site. There are too many unknowns for the Friends Field site, and I ask you to please exercise your fiscal responsibility and your management of your own risk and drop the Friends Field site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Michael Strogoff, and after Bruce Dorfman.
Thank you. I'm also an architect in Mill Valley. We have a lot of them, almost as many as we have dogs. There was something said a couple of sessions ago about the cost relative to putting turf, artificial turf. And I believe, if I heard it correctly, that the statement was made that the cost of that could be easily absorbed into the construction budget without compromising the core curriculum of the school. So a question I have is, why can't the cost of the portables also be absorbed into the construction budget without cutting into the meat? Because this is partially a fiscal decision. The second observation has to do with what the first speaker said about sustainability, because there's a growing sentiment among many people that the most sustainable solution is to reuse and repurpose and to build as little as possible. So I would really urge kind of taking a step back. I'm an architect. I love to see things built, but I've come to a point in my career that I'd love to see things repurposed even more from a sustainability perspective. So I'm just wondering whether it's worth looking at any solutions that minimizes new construction, maybe add some, but really reuses and repurposes as much as possible, because I do believe that's the most sustainable solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Good evening, board members. First, I do appreciate the effort and commitment that you've made to this community. And actually, I wanted to speak during the open time, which unusual agenda, not having a public open time, but this relates more to process. And in prior meetings, you've discussed CSB Board Bylaw 9323 in order to reduce public comment time. I've served on the TAM Bond Oversight Board. I've worked with dozens of school districts working on or creating teacher housing, presently working with MCOE to create 135 units of teacher housing over on the Oak Hill site, which could benefit your faculty and staff as well. And I've attended dozens, if not hundreds, of school board meetings. I will say that limiting public comment is not a sign of equity, transparency, or good public policy. You should always let the community speak, even if it takes longer than 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And in fact, Board Bylaw 9323 states, however, in exceptional circumstances, when necessary to ensure full opportunity for public input, the board president may, with board consent, adjust the amount of time allowed for public input. I encourage you to do this. It would be good for this community. Finally, I just want, relative to this specific topic, to mention that you're telegraphing that there's going to be a budget issue. You're going to need to go back, if not in the near term, in the longer term, for additional bond funding, for additional parcel taxes. It's going to be imperative that you have public support. And I think that incurring more cost, if that's what's required to do, to have something that has community support, is valuable. And I'd remind you about what occurred with Edna McGuire when that was being redeveloped and you wound up in litigation. It delayed the project a year. There's still a half-acre area that was going to be a field that hasn't been improved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have 3 people on Zoom. Are we ready for them? Sorry, we have Joe Mattazzoni, Liz Richmond, and Anita Sparks. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say that Friends Field is real, and any projected savings on this project are, I'm going to say, speculative at best. And it's a well-known psychological fact that if there's one thing people really hate, it's when you take something away from them that they have. And this building a school in the middle of Friends Field is going to be a very visible and a very public taking. And people are going to notice. And when we voted for Measure G, we had no idea we were signing up for a brand new middle school. It was not in the description of the bond. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So this already feels like a bit of a bait and switch, even if you take the Friends Field factor off the table. I'm certain that if you'd put that in the bond, you'd have not liked the result. So anyway, if you proceed with the Friends field plan, I'm going to say that in a few years, no one is going to remember that you saved 5% off this budget. But they're definitely going to remember that you took their playing field away. And that's assuming that that 5% comes to pass. So anyway, and I say that, like the gentleman was just alluding to a minute ago, the scar from that taking is still going to be hurting the next time the schools come back for another bond issue. So I was very interested to hear the proposal the superintendent mentioned about a poll of the public. I don't know if that was just an idea or if that's something you're really planning to do. But I definitely urge you to broaden your perspective beyond the very narrow pros and cons that are in that analysis, as my neighbor over here mentioned, which was very much weighted towards, oh, Friends Field, good idea. I suppose if you look at it very narrowly, that's how it comes out. But I urge you to broaden your perspective on what you can think of as pros and cons. And because, yeah, eroding public support for the schools is a very big con that I think needs to be fully taken into your accounting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have Liz Richmond and Anita Sparks after on Zoom?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Hi, I am a parent of 2 kids at Edna McGuire, and I'm also an architect in Mill Valley and a landscape architect as well. In the long term, I believe the best site for teaching and learning is on the current middle school site. When it comes to the sewer agency, prevailing winds in Mill Valley send odors northeast towards Friends Field and the marsh. The best location to avoid the smell is therefore to the west of the sewer agency, as close to Camino Alto as possible. And despite what is being advertised, the Friends Field option is not much further, if at all, from the sewer agency than available space at the current location. Building on this site would allow for a more cohesive campus in proximity to the gym, proposed art, band, and drama classrooms. Per 2022 GIS data, issues of sea level rise are the same on both sites. According to your consultants, the soil conditions are also the same. When looking at these data points, it's unclear how building on Friends Field would solve the concerns the board's trying to address by looking at alternative sites. In the short term, I believe our students and excellent teachers can thrive in portable classrooms. I spent my own middle school years and several years in college in buildings that were under construction, and I understand it's not ideal. But it's the responsibility of the district to consider the long-term risks and benefits rather than any short-term inconveniences. With regards to cost, the most recent cost estimate puts the potential savings of building on Friends Field at $6.4 million. This takes into account the additional 3 to 4 acres of site work required to build on Friends Field, for which the current estimate allows just 4 to 7 million. Site work is costly and resource intensive, particularly when building on fill or compromised soils. If all elements shown in the Friends Field concept plans are to be included, this would involve soil remediation, grading and drainage, utilities, paths, and vehicular loaded paving, planting, irrigation, turf, bathrooms, baseball diamonds, dugouts and bleachers, basketball courts, perimeter fences, ADA access, and a new vehicular bridge to cross the creek. All of the design, permitting, and construction of this additional work would be unnecessary if building on the current middle school site. With regards to the environmental costs and carbon footprint, it's not as simple as saying that we do or don't have to build portables. There is also an enormous environmental cost to tearing out the fields just to build them elsewhere, and to the additional site work that I've described. With regards to timeline, we've been told that the permitting process is the same for both sites.
Thank you, Liz. If you could wrap it up, please.
Sure. Did I already get to 2.5 minutes?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have Anita Sparks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, and thank you, everybody. And thank you to all my fellow speakers, community members, and parents who have spoken before me. For the most part, I agree with everything that they've said, in particular, Liz's comments right before me. And I would like to pose the question that maybe could be answered at a later time in more detail as to what these costs of litigation are going to be, and is the litigation, assuming that there's going to be litigation because Friends Field would be selected and that would incur litigation costs, and how that then would be a true offset of saving money. My other question is cost related too, is what is the cost for rebuilding new fields? Is it going to be enough to offset not having built portables? So looking at it as physically responsible, I just don't see how Friends Field really turns out to be such a cost saving. And as one speaker said before, the way the slides have been presented, I agree that they were very biased that Friends Field was the solution. And I don't think it looked really completely as to what the impact is to our community and to our students who use those fields on a daily basis. So thank you again, and I look forward to hearing more details as to the cost if in fact Friends Field were to be used as it pertains to rebuilding new fields and litigation costs. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more in person. We have Joy Koo and then Juliet Mohit after Joy.
Hi, thank you. I'm Joy Koo. I'm a parent of a middle schooler and I have 2 high schoolers that went through the process. We came, and I think many people do come to Mill Valley because of the school district, the stellar school district. But I think it's the robust community that actually keeps families here, and families like we have a teacher that grew up here, you know, her family is still here. And so dedicated to the school in terms of supporting her teaching staff through her leadership in the union. So I think what, in terms of the community, what we, you know, we meet people and families at school, but then we enjoy them on the fields for Little League and soccer and Easter egg hunts and whatnot. I, as a parent, totally do not want the kids to be disrupted, do not want the whole infrastructure of the middle school. I totally understand that it would be easier if it was more streamlined and we could go from closing this place to a new place. That would be really appreciated and less disruptive. But I think what we found, I think the silver lining of this whole process is that Friends Field is a treasure to Mill Valley. And I don't know that 6 months ago, people would have necessarily been able to articulate that. So I think what I would recommend is that we consider asking the city to consider other avenues or other venues where we can build the school. I was curious, for example, if the parking lot structure around the community center is enough space to build a school, so it would be on the PAC side. It would not disrupt Friends Field, but there are probably other options that this very intelligent, creative community could come up with. So thank you for all your service and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joy. Juliet?
Hello. I'm going to start with some thoughts from a colleague of mine who can't be here, Chris Hill. She, as a resident, a parent, a coach, a business owner, a community leader, a CERT member, and a teacher at MVMS, has shared this statement. I understand and appreciate the love we have for Friends Field, from egg hunts to jamborees to music festivals. These were all beloved and important community events. But nothing says community better than a good school. Mill Valley Middle School needs to be reconstructed. A bond measure passed to support this mission. The district owns the land and needs to ensure that our children are provided a safe and excellent environment for their education. The city has been able to profit from fundraisers and events for over 30 years, funding less than $3.5 million over that time towards maintaining the fields. Now, community members and leaders are threatening our district and the board members that they will not pass any more bond measures or parcel taxes if the district builds on this turf space. They're threatening children. Not only would the district need to use $15 million for portables, albeit in an unsafe flood zone, which will be thrown away later, But this money would be lost for improving and creating other improvements such as the gymnasium and stage for PE and drama and music programs. That will have a big impact on students' educational experiences in the future. I'm not sure that what the taxpayers were thinking when they passed the bond, but what about the possibility of using that $15 million to update and build new fields at the old school site? Or if the city doesn't want to build on Friends Field, how about if they chip in some of that $15 million towards the portables? Why are we not trying to create a win-win here? We should be working together to find financial and environmental solutions to this situation, not tearing each other apart, not pointing fingers at people who are trying to protect and support our kids. Chris loves her music festivals, and she will continue to stand up for safety and education of children in Mill Valley. I, Juliet Mohit, an alum of the Mill Valley School District, parent of kids who went to school in town, and teacher at MVMS, have 13 seconds. I want to hear how both sides, not just the district, can collaborate and compromise. There's some wonderful ideas that we could explore about intergenerational exercises, things that we could do if we built with the C2 option. I'm happy to talk about it later.
And lastly, we have Liz Moriarty and Eric Halterman. Thank you.
Hi, thank you all. Liz Moriarty. I have 2 boys in the district and a high schooler. Can you hear me? Sounds like, all right. I've been not afraid to criticize when I disagree with what this board has done, but I want to say I commend you all for this process. And Dr. Kaufman, I know this is not what you signed up for. You probably maybe wish we didn't know we own that land, but it's really important for our students to, and they are your most important constituents. I think the C2 plan looks very viable. I was very concerned about losing field space. I think that's a true issue for plenty of children in Mill Valley. That saves half of that field. And if it saves $10 to $12 million, I don't see how we can ignore that option. I really appreciate the work on this. I know I have been here for the whole process and I've heard you be presented with the same questions again and again, and your patience in answering them. And I know there's been a lot of time put into it. And I just hope there could be some more collaboration from city partners to actually get to the best result. And I have found the threatening to not support parcel taxes and bond measures and threatening to not provide access to a site, if that's a approval that has to come through the city, completely abhorrent. And I would expect better from our city and from our elected officials. This is for our children. This is for the future. This is not about the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Eric Halterman.
Thank you. Thanks for all you do. I really do appreciate you guys being here, everyone. I actually voted against Measure G. I thought the numbers were pretty excessive. I didn't realize, and I don't think anybody reasonably reading the bond measure description or actually even the text could have inferred that it was going to require taking out the middle school. But anyway, you've hired a great, now that it's passed, you've actually hired a great group. They've come up with some plans, but that's what they do. They build. And I just think that we're now 2 weeks away from making a decision on basically one of two bad options. And I'd just like to throw out, I think that there's another option we should consider. I just went and registered my son for high school. I asked how many kids are in that class. They say about 400 is the maximum that they have over there for a freshman class. Last year, they had 350. This year, they're expecting to have 300 kids come in. And if you look at the demographics in Mill Valley are dropping precipitously, even by your own data. And I'm just thinking, if what we can do, instead of rushing to judgment, rushing to build, let's pause. If we can pause for 12 years, if we could use this existing building for 12 years by your own data, your own numbers, you would actually have not enough students enrolling in middle school to fill all of the classes, all of the schools, Strawberry, TAM, Old Mill, Park, and Edna. And I'm thinking if you can wait 12 years, use this existing facility for 12 years to 14 years, you'd actually be able to transfer the students over to Edna for 2 or 3 years while you demo the site and build a proper school here. Or you may find out that you don't need another school here. You save Friends Field, You avoid potentially spending $150 million. You avoid the lawsuits, you avoid the animosity, and you don't dislocate the students. You could just do it very easily, move them over for 2 or 3 years, decide if that's a permanent location. And then if it's not, then you demo the middle school and you rebuild the middle school at that time. So anyway, I hope you'll take a look at that. Hope you'll consider that as another option before you make a decision on March 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. We are going to turn back to our design team, and I think it's actually open for board discussion. Hold on, I don't know if we're gonna pull up any slides just before we go straight into it. Getting the team ready. Is there any slide in particular that we should pull up on the screen, which is not showing anything?
The map.
You want to look at the maps or the site plans? Okay, so he would like to pull up A, B, C, C2, anyone in particular?
I like to look at concept, the one at A and B.
Okay.
And I like to focus on the safety of our children because I'm looking at Camino Alto, right? Right over here. And every time I drive by or go to Safeway, I see kids hanging out very close to the street. And what would be, in your opinion, how could we safety, I mean, this is the busiest part of the district. I'm not even talking about the location being next to the city sewer, which is very unfortunate as well. How could we keep our students safe when they're facing the biggest, the busiest road in our town, where cars are going 40 miles an hour?
Here we go. I was just waiting for the concept A to show up here. So I'll have if we can get started with Mark with Flint as well as Lionakis to kind of weigh in and just talk. If you can repeat your question, please.
I just want to know if this, in your opinion, being located right next to the busiest street is the safest choice for our children.
Well, construction wise, yeah, it's hard to.
No, from after the design, how could we keep our students safe? Because for me as a mom, I'm concerned about the safety regarding the road, kids crossing the street all the time. How do you contain the students in concept A and B?
So typically we look at safety and security as territorial enforcement, perimeter fencing, those kind of things on either of the concepts. So I think they all have that potential because ultimately most of the kids are going to end up at Camino Alto at some point or another. We do often meet with Safe Routes to Schools at both the city and county level to have a discussion about improvements. And because of our CEQA process on either site, CEQA will evaluate not only the vehicular traffic, but the pedestrian and bicycle traffic in and out and make suggestions for mitigation. So there may be offsite improvements incurred as part of those recommendations that we would respond to as part of the site development. Does that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure because every time I drive by, I see them having lunch over there, jumping the fences. And I just want to make sure in our new building, if you choose concepts A and B, that will be the safest decision for our children.
And I do, just to that point, I think, Brett, in your dissertation, wasn't there something about proximity of a school building to neighboring, whether it's housing or communities, that actually helps to increase safety for a school, that when there's somebody around to observe? I did, in fact, read part of your dissertation.
I don't remember which part you read.
Yeah. I think perhaps there's a little bit of a thematic process now whereby in light of recent events in the past few years that we're tending to build schools farther away from major arterial passages and creating a buffer zone just for safety reasons. I'm not sure if that's the part you're talking about.
I think it was actually about having a community nearby and other buildings and neighbors increases the safety.
Yeah, absolutely. you know, more eyes, the more eyes, the better. In the district that I came from, actually, all of the school districts were sort of nested in housing communities, and it often worked to their advantage because, you know, as the director of facilities, I remember getting calls late at night when there was access to the site that shouldn't have been there, and it helped sort of deter those activities. So there is some definitely some safety and security in that that's added.
But Yunhee, I agree with you about, I've never seen kids jumping the fence.
I never seen them
But
jump the fence either.
after school, the flow of traffic, there are a lot of drivers that, you know, I mean, God bless the Safe Routes to School, traffic safety, people who are there, putting themselves out there with these kids who are not listening. But I think when it comes to managing, how we map out managing traffic, car line, bikes, there's a lot of crossover that happens, and the kids certainly aren't paying attention a lot of the time. So as much as we can help look out for the safety of the kids in that would be wonderful.
And I believe regardless of site, regardless of
neighbors.
site, no, well, there'll be neighbors, but the entrance to our school remains off of Sycamore. So drop off, pickup, it's not going to change,
And-
regardless of A, B, C, or C2.
And also with neighbors, either it's a neighbor of a community center and by the path, or it's the neighbor of the, you know, neighborhood and the church. And so benefit either way.
Trustee Josh, thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Can we go to the C2 option that was mentioned by a constituent, a couple of constituents? So this is a new option that came in, I think, on the 13th or 15th of this month. And I want to thank you and applaud you for your amazing responsiveness to our community input. And I feel that we have a timeline that we are obligated to meet. And in that context, I hope we can spend time tonight to get as much information out to the public that they can also review after tonight on our website related to these topics. So C2, I heard from constituents how our field is a recreational resource. As a matter of fact, we have Friends of Park and Rec who has been actively engaged in dissuading us from Friends Field. So in response to the use of the fields, I heard people looking for all-terrain fields as all-season fields, as we have a lot of folks who use fields for lacrosse, soccer, and baseball, and there are many months in which they are not usable due to our weather. So could you speak to because people like data and they like numbers. With this option, how many total acres is Friends Field? How many total acres does this create in rec field space? And also, does this provide a all-season terrain and other elements that you've been able to identify as you've also been sitting and listening to community concerns and comments?
So I'm going to give you rough numbers because we don't have all of the exact data, but Friends Field is approximately 3.3 acres north of the hard court space that the district currently occupies. We're looking at approximately half of that remaining available. So let's say 1.6 plus or minus acres. The new fields that we showed there is approximately 2 3/4 acres. So when we add the two together, we're somewhere over 4 acres rather than the 3.3 acres. So we think there's about a net gain of an acre of usable field space in the option C2, albeit at different times it would become available. As to the turf, Mark has done some analysis on the turf and feels like we can absorb that in the site numbers we've already included. But I think there's still discussion about whether turf is the right surface for for everyone, and we need to kind of look at that, I think, as we get into the design process. Not every person loves their kids playing on soccer on turf, right? So we have to hear everyone out on those concerns.
Thank you.
I was gonna talk about, since we're on C2.
Yeah.
Interesting that, in the thought exchange, I wrote down long-term viability of site was one of the top, I guess, liked comments, or I don't know what you want to call it. But, we've been talking about educational impact, timeline, budget, community input. I've always said from the beginning that we need to plan a school that's going to last 50 to 100 years. So it's not for today or tomorrow, it's for the future. And thank you, design team. Thank you for doing all this work, because you did a tremendous amount of work in a short amount of time to get this. And there's a high value in the pods, which I know we're going to get to later on. But I had an initial reaction when I saw this. Okay, so, and for anyone in the room, for all the other architects, I'm one too. Okay, just want to add that. And my work was always in the public realm. I did public. This is why I'm here. This is one of the reasons. I did public work with public dollars. I know this public process. And I also know how people move through sites. And one thing when I saw this, my reaction was, so we are tied, because of our budget constraints, we are tied to keep our existing gym. And that becomes the anchor point in our site. And so no matter what the scenario, whether it's A, B, or C2, we're gonna, we're keeping the gym, and we're gonna focus we need to remain, we need to keep proximity to it. Because our entrance to our school will always be from Sycamore, and normally you put your administrative functions towards the front of the school, because now, unlike the school currently, new schools, are fenced in. New schools have a single point of entry. New schools have a controlled point of entry. And so we would naturally put that administrative building closer to the front. So you could see in this diagram, and I know it's just a block diagram, but it's adjacent to the gym. But that means that our administrative functions, usually our principal, our vice principal, and our dean of students, could potentially be in that front building, because that's the front of the school. That's typically where those functions go. And it's important for them to maintain proximity to each other, so they, can be an effective team. They are the ones that keep the glue of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, along with the teachers. Sorry, they and the teachers are the glue that keep, those really awkward, fragile middle school years together. So I feel it's very important that they stay together. However, they also need to be with the students. And with this, what I don't like about this is the fact that our, I'm going to call it the academic building, for lack of better words, is across the creek, and it's across a bridge. And so, I heard in the steering committee meetings how our vice principal enjoys the fact that her office is actually right here. And when she's able to, she keeps the door open, and during passing periods, there's interaction. Our administrative team has made themselves accessible to our students during passing periods. That's really important. Now, if you're now physically separated, literally by a creek, and you have to cross over, a bridge, and I don't foresee, because this needs a fire truck access, I don't foresee this being covered, actually. You've lost that connection. And for me, that's changing the culture of our school. So that, to me, is not a great vision looking forward for a school for the future. There's other functions too, it remains to be seen where right now, Panther Cafe would probably remain near the gym. And it's unknown where the eating spaces would be, but we have a very disjointed campus on this. And this is what I don't like. I want a cohesive campus. I want to be able to, leave a classroom, go get your lunch, and then if it's club day, you have access to your classroom pretty quickly again. I don't want, clubs to suffer as a result of this distance that we've introduced inadvertently. I'm trying to think if there's something I had also, but that was my, you know, the physical barrier of the creek, after a while, to me, becomes a psychological barrier. And that's not how I envision the future of the school.
That actually is a good point.
Oh, sorry, so Yoonhee, oh, sorry, she had her hand up first.
So since I'm the only abrasive one enough to say, you know, to clarify, you know, the collaboration, I love collaboration. You know, I believe in it. I wish we had it. I wish, you know, we had collaboration with the city. And I like to make this very clear. Trustee Nakatani and I are the contact people for the city. We had a discussion with city 6 months ago. Was it 8 months ago, 6 months ago?
Last summer.
Because at the time, we were desperate for potential spaces for our portables. So we are, and also parking spaces for our valuable teachers and where to stage the construction. So we met with the city. And I have to say, and I think Elizabeth would agree, that was one of the most depressing and disheartening meeting. And I tell you, I have to put it out there because cities not being forthcoming when they say they've been helpful, because all they provided us were 3 to 5 parking spaces. And they told us what we knew, which is go across the church and look for parking spaces. And what was, to me, very insensitive is that our teachers who are driving from as far away places as Petaluma and Santa Rosa, park in Coto Madera at a town center and take buses to our schools, which to me didn't seem like it was being very collaborative. And it's our bad. We had no idea we owned Friendsfield, Trustee Nakatami and myself. So we asked for what we really needed, which is, could we take a little bit of Friendsfield to build our portables? And their answer was absolutely not. And they could have clarified, it's your land and let's come up with collaborative solution. And they didn't. And so, and I know Elizabeth, our superintendent, had a meeting with the city manager soon after, and she got the same impression that they didn't care about our school. They didn't care about our school district. And we needed to make sure, and we have a fiduciary duty. I have utmost confidence in our consultants to make sure that the construction process is going to be very safe. But there are parents who believe that we're building on a toxic dump site and even demanding for the closure of our Edna Elementary School. And that's not, you know, this board has already decided that is not an option. And they also threatened us with litigation. So once we find out that we own Friendsfield, and if we don't do serious work evaluating this potential site, we're exposing ourselves and not doing our fiduciary duty. So we approached the city about potentially using Friendsfield, and this is how they reacted. Our superintendent was told that she's going to get fired because the city is going to make sure this board is going to be recalled. And then they went on a social media rampage. You know, one city council member posted a video of Santana where children's play, and he put down, "This is my last Waterloo." I mean, I hope he realizes Waterloo, Napoleon got destroyed. So did the French. So I don't know if he meant we're the French or we're the British. Have no idea. But you do not use rhetoric like that against children and the school district. Another one, a former mayor and the current council member went on Facebook, basically threatening the school district, which seemed like that is not collaboration. You don't threaten. You actually have a productive discussion. And I really hope going forward, as we reset this process, we have real collaboration. And this has taught us a lesson. And I think it's important that we learn what collaboration is. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Ernst-Taj.
So I have, let's see if I have any other questions related. I did hear a concern from a constituent regarding litigation. Can we put up that slide? Because I think that I wanted to focus on that. There's been a lot of data and I wanted to just understand that number, or if we have if someone can verbally tell me, because I'm sorry, I don't have that chart in front of me, maybe
I think it was slide 17.
slide 17. Thank you, Sid. Litigation costs. Okay, litigation would increase hard costs approximately 7 million per year, assuming 7% escalation factor and trigger additional soft costs as well. Okay, can someone share with me where they come up with the 7 million per year?
Sure. The 7 million is based on the $130 million cap budget. So 7 million, 7% escalation is what we're carrying right now in the estimate. So essentially it equals to $7 million in construction hard cost escalation every year. That is just hard costs. In addition, would be legal costs, soft costs, additional fees for the rest of the team.
And
Yeah.
so city and Friends of Park have already retained attorneys to potentially pursue the litigation, right?
We have been advised that potential litigation is a real threat to our timeline and costs. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, other comments I'd like to make in my assessment of the benefits and drawbacks. I would like to also acknowledge and thank the team for looking at each site based on its merits for our children. And our charge of placing what some people consider is not the jewel of the city. They consider Friends Field to be the jewel of the city, and they've made that notion very clear. But in my experience, having moved here in 1964 and been along with Kim Jessup, I was the first 7th grade class here. I can share with you that I know that people move here for our good schools and our excellent education and the support that the community does provide it. And I look forward to this community continuing to support their schools. I think the educational benefits to Friends Field are overwhelming. The timeline supports Friends Field. The environmental site information supports Friends Field. There are cost savings that support Friends Field. And then there is the community input. And for those of you who have noticed, there is a preponderance of certain comments that would like to encourage us to promote the site here. There are many people who are threatened by talks of litigation. There are many people that won't come to a personal space like this because they don't feel safe speaking in a group, but they are emailing us. And we are listening to you, those of you who didn't come tonight and have come. We take the threat of litigation seriously. We see the costs of it. Thank you for sharing. What we don't know is how many years it might take. So we are in a very unfortunate and unfair situation, this board. Because basically what has happened is that we have threats of attorneys and court time and litigation, which is taking away dollars from your children, our children, should we decide to put these buildings on Friends Field. And that's real. The other piece you should do, folks, is go back and read the whole bond measure, most of us don't read all the details. It is clear that that bond language states that this board and this district can put this building on any site it chooses to be meeting the charge of the bond language. It's in there. If you need help finding it, we have folks who can help you find it, okay? Because the facts need to prevail. The facts need to prevail. So this is what I wanted to share, is that this board is in a very difficult position. Because we have, as you've heard, an imbalance. The four are not balanced, and currently within a short timeline, because if we don't make a decision, our costs escalate, and we are very concerned about our children being in a brand new facility. And we're very concerned about the litigation, and we're also very concerned about creating a world-class structure on a site that promotes the most benefit for student learning. And I guess, I don't know if there's any other information, because I don't know if there was any other information. Trustee Katz, you haven't had a chance to speak that you wanted to ask about? Or are you at this point where maybe we're at a deliberative stage and we can listen to each other?
I mean, I feel like the discussion has taken a different direction. And at the end of the day, I wholeheartedly agree, and I wish that it weren't as complicated. And I think there are a lot of people who have reached out to the board and make it seem very simple and straightforward. And anything that is simple and straightforward is just absolutely not realistic. And
Yes.
I think our students are the only stakeholders here who don't have a voice in this process, so we have to speak for them. That being said, I also acknowledge that we were elected into public office to represent the voice of the community, which is why the community impact piece has been very telling and very important. And I'm just grateful to the district and everybody that's been part of this process to look into that. I'm curious what the district recommendation is.
Can
at
I
this
speak
point?
can I speak my mind about deliberation? I always, as you know, I'm the one who's talking about money, money, money. And honestly, I don't feel comfortable about the cost savings presented from the option C. You know, my impression, but my thing was, well, you know, I'm okay with community disruption. If I think that would mean we could provide elementary with much needed upgrades. But I'm not sure at this point we can make decisions based upon that savings information, which ironically would have led me to deciding that the current site will be a safer and better decision and a better decision for our community. So I feel like, sadly, you know, we weren't able to have a discussion based upon merits of each location because, you know, we just were, our hands were tied. We wanted to make the best decision for our teachers, the construction workers, our students, and our community, and prioritizing what is important to our district. But at this point, I think we would have to make a decision based upon litigation risk.
And just to validate or confirm what you just shared, you don't feel comfortable in the proposed savings based on the potential for
Preliminary.
litigation, not based on what.
No, potential savings from what they presented, because I was hoping for a lot more detailed cost information about, you know, the unknowns. This is a known. I agree. This is a known site. We know what to expect. That is not an unknown site. And I have to say, when a whole bunch of builders and developers tell me that that's not buildable, I would have preferred a lot more due diligence to see whether that site was really, you know, buildable and save money and worth causing so much headache to the community. I mean, I have a husband who says, that view, you know, as I'm biking to go to Mount Tam, that view is just incredible. You're destroying that view. So I'm getting it from my husband. Okay, except my husband is not threatening to sue or not pass the parcel taxes or destroy the district. So I get that. I mean, I'm a cyclist. I love biking through here. You know, this is a great view, so I get it. But for me, it was more about the cost and I'm not very comfortable that we will have cost savings. There's way too much unknown. So I want to get it out there that would have been what I was going to focus on, but all that has become moot because of the litigation, because of some misinformation that we don't have legal rights to the field that we don't own and all that. And I care very much about fiscal health of our district. And currently it is the litigation that, you know, makes this site impossible.
Well, no, I disagree, but trustee
I
Katz,
was-
I
I
would
was
like
just-
to
I was
hear
just
your
going
point of
to
view.
respectfully disagree. I think that with the multiple millions of dollars that you've accounted for with the additional site mitigation and full acknowledgement of the field space having the additional site work required, I think that was accounted for. But when it comes down to it, if we're talking escalating costs that essentially wipe out the potential savings and frankly, the educational impact, because the reason we're trying to do this with this timeline right now is so we can kind of time down the construction work. So we're not impacting an additional school year for students and trying to be the most responsible to our teachers and to the kids that are going to be going through this process. And so if that's going to be compromised, then, you know, I think that, you know, we're absolutely put in a difficult position. So.
Yeah, I would concur with you,
Yeah.
trustee Katz. I'm just gonna go back to, you know, one thing I did miss is, again, we need to plan big picture vision for the future school, for the long-term future of this school. And administrator I spoke with this morning, when I said, I talked about the administrative block being away from the main school, the words I heard were not ideal.
Yeah.
We are going to make an ideal school. We're not going to make a not ideal school. So there's multiple reasons, which I concur with, you know, bits and pieces, but it's not primarily one. This was a huge thing for me personally.
Okay.
And we listened to our community. It came out strong
Mhm.
support to stay here. And you know, in addition to the many other points that have been brought up. Sorry, I'm getting a little lost.
So
for
as
words.
I'm, yeah, as well as I'm
Trustees
listening
Ernst,
to all this,
please.
and I do appreciate, because that's information, again, in this fast moving timeline, you know, we're getting it in real time, and I also want to acknowledge that, that Friends Field site, you know, we've all have our personal biases, but I've been on that site and I've noticed it's quiet. I've noticed it's noisy here. I'm an educator of 28 years. I've noticed that it is away from the buzz, and that when you're in a peaceful environment, our middle schoolers, there's research to suggest, even our teachers, it's a different kind of a space, a different kind of environment. Yes, the admin building, maybe with that information, this could be reworked. What I'm going to say again is that I think it's unfair, the position this board's been put in. And, you know, it's unfair. It's unfair for children of this district. And it's going to be ongoing. It's not going to go away with a decision tonight. But we can't afford a delay. And you've seen if it's 7 million a year, and Superintendent Kaufman, can you share with us what probability you have in terms of how many years, if we are put into litigation, what is the prognosis of how long something like that would take?
Well, I'm not an attorney. However, I believe I've heard anywhere from 3 to 5 years, depending on the situation.
So we own Friends Field. And there has been the Friends of Park and Rec and the city of Mill Valley that has been using that field since 2004 without any written agreements. There's been conversation that there's been verbal agreements and it's worked out for people.
No verbal
But
agreement. It's just some assumed
Well,
agreement.
what I can share with you is that if we need to concede if I need to concede what I feel is the better site, that we need revenue from this site to make up for the additional expenses. We all know it's a $6 million savings without litigation to put a site there. We're going to need to have that site become a resource for our district children and provide some ongoing revenues as we navigate a new expense plan.
Yeah, I don't think I kind of agree with it because what I would argue for is I think we immediately have to put maybe month-to-month agreement with the city. I mean, until we figure out and negotiate with all the teams. And I understand there's Mill Valley Music Festival. God forbid we take that away from the community. So we want to make sure that we still get to have what the community needs and that enhances the quality of life in Mill Valley. But at the same time, I don't think it's right that we are in this day and age that we are depending upon some handshake thing that was done even before I was born, probably, and really make sure that we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's in terms of all the agreements that we may not have with the Mill Valley Little League, all the teams, Chamber of Commerce, to make sure that we're protecting our children against any potential liability and to ensure that we exactly understand what the economics of this field is, because I keep hearing from one side, oh, that's going to have huge negative cash flow impact. Well, our children's money versus that's going to cost a lot. So I think we should spend some time analyzing exactly what our control of what we own should entail.
Oh, thank you, trustee. Yeah, I was gonna say one last thing to that matter. We are not chaos demons. We, including trustee Abdoli, did not choose to, create this firestorm. I want everyone to know that. We had regardless of my personal opinion, when this first came up, I may have had an opinion. I put that aside. We need to explore our options. That's it. We have a fiduciary responsibility. We need to explore options. It would be an absolute dereliction of duty if we didn't. So let us complete our research project. Don't stop us prematurely from doing it just because you don't like this. We're going to assume control of our property, or we're going to address better control of our property. We expect collaboration from the city of Mill Valley on that. We expect it. With that, I don't think we're going to ask staff for direction. I think this is on the trustees to give direction for how to proceed.
I do have one last comment to make if I may.
Please.
Because I know that we live in a greater community known as Marin County, and some of us do read the Independent Journal. And there was an editorial on our situation here. And it gave me pause because the editorial board suggested the obvious, and we're not there in this town, that these organizations, the school district, the city, the Friends of Park and Rec, find consensus. And I'm here to share with you that that's not happening tonight. Because again, I have a business decision to make. We run an educational organization. We don't run fields. We don't run the community center. But we recognize that we have two groups with some supporters who have made it clear to us that they will use attorneys, they will use the courts, and they are going to put us in litigation. And it's a weapon. It's a weapon with consequences. And so the decision is difficult, but it is a business decision. For me, I have to say again, it's unfair, but I have to make a decision to cite our school on this site. And I am hopeful that the Friends of Park and Rec and the city and their and this community who have spoken against us using Friends Field even as an option from the get-go and have not changed their mind on that from one moment, will join us moving forward and truly find consensus on the use of Friends Field with us. And so we can right this ship and also have our team get back to the business of constructing a school.
And, yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
I was about to wrap up, but if you've got one more.
And I really, really mean it. I think collaboration doesn't involve intimidation. It doesn't involve threats. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm a mom who felt like my skill set could contribute to this school district. We don't get paid. You know, we spend 20 hours a week not getting paid for this volunteer position. And you know, it's been an eye-opening experience for me. I wasn't born here. I didn't get raised here. I moved here in 2008. So, you know, not some, you know, it just seems like there's prevailing sense that you are really only true Mill Valley person if you spent decades living in Mill Valley, and not all of them have been very fortunate. Not all of us have been able to be that fortunate to live here that long. But, you know, I value the children, our school district, and this is why I'm here. I used to volunteer as a, you know, book fair organizer, lunch organizer. Now I'm, you know, adding hopefully my analytical skills and, you know, the experience I've gained working 30 years in the hedge fund and finance industry. So I hope you understand, we are really trying to make the best decision for our students. And our fiduciary duty really was exploring all the sites that we owned. And we should have known that we own Friendsville, but I actually didn't. So, you know, I have to say, I've been very saddened by the community's attack on our children due to threat of litigation, especially coming from a city. I've never experienced a city attacking a school district and threatening to get our superintendent fired. I mean, for us, it's a voluntary job, but for her, it's a livelihood. And I hope that we could all learn from this experience that this is not how collaboration means. This is not how I would want my 10-year-old to behave. So I hope to learn from it. I've learned. I hope the city really understands the meaning of collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, fellow trustees. And I think with that, I think we could wrap up this portion. I think we can give our design team some direction on what to bring back on March 7th for an official vote. Do I have head nodding about that? So I'm just going to ask for a straw poll, which would be, please bring back an option or to validate the site of this current site at March 7th and not use Friends Field.
Can I ask you?
Could I get
yes.
just look, hand raised real quick.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Okay, thank you. 4 hand raises. Thank you, fellow trustees. And one, we're going to move into, because there's still some content in this, and this is really important. But trustee, you had one more thing?
yes. Can I ask for the cost estimate? Like I'm the only one who cares about between A and B for this concept, because one's a single story, the other one is 2 stories. You know, aesthetically, I prefer concept A, but you know, I just want to know pluses and minuses of each site.
And this is going to be for the 3/7 board meeting is when you're requesting this information? Okay.
Thank you. And then, yes, so I think we can go back to, trustee Katz.
Just quickly, just to follow on the prior multiple comments made, would love to, if we could direct the district to look further into
Thank you.
or the Friends Field and our ownership and how we move forward
Yeah.
from where we are.
Yes. I second that.
So officially, we want to give direction to staff to investigate
Mhm.
how we will run our property.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd
Whatever
like to say
form that-
how we're gonna how we're gonna use it as a resource to offset the costs now that we have from using this current site. So looking at it in terms of its revenue generation opportunities. While understanding that we have longstanding use of it from different community members and particularly the city and the Friends of Park and Rec.
Thank you. Is that clear? Do we need to any more elaboration on that? That's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also urge you to have discussions with all the sports team, how much they contribute in terms of volunteers and monetary contribution to maintaining the fields as well as usage fees and also with Chamber of Commerce.
Any other questions on that? We're okay? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, design team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna get into, I think we're part 3, check. Okay.
So we will, sorry, we will move to part 4. So we're gonna have our Lionakis team go over just the steering committee work that was done with our group and just a review of it and the recommendations that came from the meetings.
Thanks, Julio. So I want to thank the steering committee. We've had 3 significant meetings. They've put a lot of time and effort into giving us feedback. At the time of our 3rd steering committee, however, we did not have a direction on a location. Next slide, Sid. So what we did instead was use a ballot process to, as I mentioned, get the kit of parts and their feedback on those kit of parts. We offered them multiple options for grade level pods, and we'll share the winner tonight, which was unanimous, the preferred pod and how it works. We generally, folks wanted science integrated at the grade level, and so we'll be looking at that as we bring you back options for the Mill Valley Middle School site. We were split on 1 story and 2, and a lot of that had to do with where the location might be and how that laid out. So again, we can, per trustee Yu's request, we can bring the cost differential between the single story and a 2-story option on this site to the next meeting. And then we also asked them if there was funding available. We've talked in the past that we have an allowance for mitigation of site and toxic soils and other things on this site. And if that money was not to be fully utilized on site mitigation, where might they want us to spend it? And we proposed a deep renovation of the existing multipurpose to bring it and the adjacent facilities up to the standards of the new facility. Or do we look at it as enclosing additional interior gathering space to augment the existing multipurpose? And you can see there, there was a split there as well. So I think some of the options will address these, and we can take the project a little further to get to some real cost estimating. There's quite a few comments there that you can read and a little bit of editorializing about the site as well. So this is the pod option that was preferred, and we did bring some photographs and renderings to support this. Each would be a grade level pod configuration, and in this example, all classrooms would have direct access to the outdoors, whether at the ground level or a 2nd floor deck outside of their classrooms. Next, please. We showed what that might look like as a covered outdoor space with connecting space between 1st and 2nd floor, glassy connections, so teachers could send students out to that space and still have observation of them, and how we might use furnishings to extend the learning environment. Additionally, we brought the same option, but included an interior resource space, which all rooms open into, and then that resource space would open into the outdoor environment. So still a connection, but they're not the same direct connection. And this would be a little more similar to what the school has now, where the classrooms open into a central space, but a little bit more direct access to the outside. This rendering starts to show how you might use that resource space for either maker environments or other collaborative learning. And we brought an example project where something similar was done, where you can see the collaboration space on the lower right and how it connects to an outdoor covered space, even on the second floor deck. So we're going to use that ballot to inform how we look at the Mill Valley Middle School site and the options we bring back, and look forward to our continuing efforts with the steering committee.
Thank you. So that's all the information we had for tonight. Outside any additional questions?
Any other questions?
So my
Oh.
husband wants me to ask you. His friend is an architect, went to some conference somewhere in Florida, and they said they're inflatable portables that are very easy to deploy. Is that possibility? Do you know of anything like that? I
Not
just
in
told.
California.
Okay, thanks. Earthquake and whatnot. Yeah, that's what I told him. Okay.
Shift around in an earthquake a little bit. Trustee Katz.
Just a quick question. There have been comments made about reusing and renovating and trying to honor some of that in terms of sustainability. Can you speak to where in the overall site some of that is happening?
So as you remember, the facilities master plan indicated a replacement of this campus, and that's what we've been building off of. And the assumptions that were part of that decision, I believe, and part of why we've pushed that analysis forward is the impact of the state architect and the requirements on this existing building. We think that the cost of renovating this will start to approach replacement costs and still require, obviously, the interim housing. With that said, it doesn't mean it isn't possible. We do have a first floor of this building that is below the FEMA floodplain level. So while technically, as an existing facility, we could maintain that space, it wouldn't be meeting the goals of the facilities master plan or the community to address sea level rise. So if we were to use this existing building, it would be predominantly the floor we're on now, which might mandate up to about 30,000 square feet of replacement space above the FEMA floodplain. That would be in addition to this site. Should we choose to mitigate that starts to impact, obviously, the site size and open space pretty considerably. So while I completely hear the concerns, I think our renovation or reuse right now is going to be limited to the multipurpose building, and making sure that that serves for the next significant generations.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I wanted to say thank you, design team. This has been
It's quite an experience.
quite a 6, 7, how many, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it is. And thank you for being on this journey with us. It's been tough, and we're grateful that you've put in all the hard work that you have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to the next part of this and focusing on the work of creating an excellent first-class site and building for our students. Thank you.
And with that, we get to adjourn this meeting at 8:17. Thank you.
Sooner than I thought.